Just in case somebody comes out with, a pearl of wisdom, I want to capture it. And also because people can't always join us at this time. And so they like getting the recording.
Yeah.
I can tell you why I wanted to talk about nothingness, or why I'm interested. There's a talk from Sid where he talks about how everything comes from nothingness, and how the moment you insist on relying on the outside to get what you need, like even if it's a job or money or whatever, if you resist on having a logical way on the outside to provide it, getting stuck on that, then basically you are doomed, because everything comes from nothingness. And there's something in that, like a bit of a more magical way of looking at life, like acknowledging that everything doesn't have to work out in a way like my rational mind understands it, because actually there are a lot of examples in my life where stuff just happens or shows up and I don't know from where, and I couldn't have done it myself, like by just Googling something or whatever. And I just feel like I love this quality of being more aware of that there's always this possibility in life of something new and unexpected showing up, and of trusting more in that, and trusting in when I'm just being in a nice feeling that the wisdom shows up, basically. I mean, wisdom comes from nothingness too, right? So I don't know, it's just something that resonates with me, or it's interesting to me.
I love that. You know what that also reminds me of? This, like not knowing.
Yeah.
This, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
our society seems to talk us into the fact that we're supposed to know a lot more than we than we currently know. I don't even know how to put it into words, but this nothingness, from nothingness comes everything. We don't know what's going to come from nothingness in the next moment. We don't know what thought's going to come to us in the next moment. So that's all I want to say.
I've been interested recently in the awareness piece. Because I look outside. That tree is conscious. That little bug that landed on my arm, they're conscious. And I heard a show yesterday. There are microbes that live, 5 kilometers under the ground, that take thousands of years to reproduce, that eat rocks and excrete rocks. They're conscious. And so there's this. So life is coming from nothingness, and that life is expressing in awareness at some level. It's expressing as awareness. And sometimes I get wrapped up in my own personal life, and that's not the point. That's not the point.
Oh, I love that. That's not the point. Our personal life is not the point.
My personal life is not the point. It's not my job. It's not the point. Anyway. So I like the essence piece, and if I focus on awareness, I see a lot broader oneness about life. If I focus on the awareness, it's a little intellectual for me to focus on the thought piece, because that little microbe is in there, using thought in some capacity to eat rocks and excrete rocks. But it's harder for me to connect with than the awareness of that microbe just living. So anyway, consciousness. I have an easier time with consciousness, and that might be because I'm kind of a head guy, and that's a trap. Now it's a trap for me. So if I focus on awareness, I'm less conceptual. Anyway, does any of that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around nothingness. Right? I mean, I can't even fathom what is nothingness, you know?
Yeah.
What is that?
No, but I love what Ellen just described, because I think it's the same direction of this broader focus of not getting so tuned in into focused on some certain forms, but more on the, like Ellen said, the awareness. Or for me, with the nothingness, it's like the background of everything, where everything comes from. So it's just like a wider sense of awareness or consciousness. And of course, I can't wrap my head around nothingness either, but there's some kind of feeling of looking to the beyond or before everything, or the unknown. I don't know. I don't think it's anything you can express with the mind or something, but there's a feeling to it. And I guess it's similar to what Ellen was just describing, to just yeah, that's it.
You know
I
what
don't know
word
better
comes to
words.
me?
There is
Probably
no
listening
definition for
to the
nothingness.
two of you. What's that?
There's no
Shava?
definition for nothingness. Nothingness
Yeah.
doesn't exist at all. Because if nothing means no thing exists. So we are all things, we all exist. So it's like self-contradictory, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Do you know the phrase word salad? You know
Yep.
that phrase?
Yeah.
Word salad. Nothingness leads to word salad.
Yep. Nothingness is well, like I can say that, like, too much talked about word or phrase or whatever. We'll end up with nothing.
I think for me, it's sometimes like a little bit like Zen koans, like these words or sentences that doesn't really make sense. Like, I think last time we talked about how Sid says, listen for a feeling. And the sentence doesn't really make sense because you can't listen for a feeling, but still it touches something inside you where you exactly know what he means by it, or you at least get a glimpse of what he means.
Observe your feelings. That's it.
Yeah.
Ooh, you
And
can.
I love that.
This just occurred to me. I can feel for a listening. That works for me too.
Yep.
When
I've never thought of that.
when I have a feeling, I hear better. So in a sense, it's like I can feel for a listening as well as listen for a feeling. So there you go. Word salad, right?
I rely on that a lot, Ellen. Feeling my listening, because of my hearing impairment.
That's right.
You know what word came to me listening to the three of you is trust. That this nothingness that sprouts everythingness is, we just trust that's it's hard to find the words. There's a trust in that. It's the same thing like your description, Alan, of rocks having consciousness. What blows my mind is that fruit flies have consciousness. Right? Who has ever caught a fruit fly? Those guys know when you're coming for it. How? There's no brain that could fit inside of a little fruit fly. There's no brain there. It's instinct. It's, I don't know. It's just,
it's awareness manifested. Awareness manifested.
Awareness, yeah.
It's awareness manifested as a fruit fly.
Awareness doesn't take up any space. It's invisible. So it can fit inside of a fruit fly because it doesn't take up any space, I guess. Yeah.
I guess that's really wondrous to me, that life is awareness manifested in all these physical forms.
Yeah.
All these physical forms. Yeah, there's a, like I said, I think there's a oneness to it that is just magic.
Yeah.
It's just magic. It's like this massive bouillabaisse of stuff, right? Coming from awareness and nothingness, right? This bouillabaisse of manifestations, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the bouillabaisse. I always say it's
Yeah.
like a kaleidoscope, you know, like, but it's the bouillabaisse is very nice too.
Very, it's a very tasty, savory metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Very tasty, savory metaphor.
And the possibilities are endless, infinite possibilities from nothingness, I mean, from awareness, from consciousness, whatever word you want to put on that.
I remember, Sid saying a couple times how infinitesimally small we are, these little specks,
Right,
specks of life,
right.
infinitesimally small, and yet part of that awareness that is simmering on the stove, you know?
And so much for us to rely upon. That's beyond the physical, that's beyond the brain. And that's what we get so attached to relying on, our brain information, our thinking. But there's so much that's deeper than that. The wisdom that is also invisible.
Yeah, and like this, I just realized somehow that there's this part inside yourself that knows what you will say before you put it into words, you know? Like the knowing is there before I put it in words. But I never thought about that before, you know? How can you know stuff without thinking it? And do you know what I mean? It's a very weird feeling, I think, for me to go there in my mind. That somehow I always know what I know before I put it into words. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, yeah, that's really something to reflect on, right?
Yeah.
Your
And
thinking
it's
has to
like this
happen
split
before.
second,
Yeah.
you can't even time it. It's like the speed of light, right? So there doesn't seem to be any space. It seems like we're just speaking what comes to us. But it's got to come to us before we find words for it, right?
Yeah, because I mean, little kids know stuff without putting it into words, right? So the knowing needs to be there. I mean, I'm not when I'm born, I'm not I might be a thinking being, but not thinking in words, you know? Like the words come later, but as an adult, it always seems like the words are instant and first, but I don't think that can be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a great way to observe that is infants.
Yeah.
Right? That they recognize faces, they can, it's like they know so much and they don't have any words.
Words are used to describe the things, the experiences, but words are not the things. That's why with your senses, brain and all, you see things, you touch things, you experience things, and then try to communicate with others through words. Words are invented by us to like exchange the information or exchange ideas or like live together in a more cooperative way. That's all. But the real things are things like a tree or a face or a mother or a hug. These are all the real things. It doesn't need a long ways to experience, but to communicate it with others about the things, we invented languages or words.
Yeah, I think it's language that gets us into trouble, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Hearing
And
this is making me think like
misinterpretation or like all those.
misunderstandings. People think that they're hearing correctly and they're really not hearing what the speaker intended. Yeah, gets us into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, my dog is a lot happier than I am. And when my dog communicates with me about wanting to go outside or wanting something to eat, there's no question. There's no question about the subtlety of what he wants or the kind of food he wants. You know, it's I like the clarity. Eddard Stark is his name. He's named after a Game of Thrones character. So I love the clarity of this little white senior half blind dog. He's so crystal clear.
Yep.
He has words, but you know, not very many.
Right. Actually, this brought me like some kind of the things I understood about Buddha's philosophy. Mainly, the difference is like your desires are the reason for your sorrows or something.
Mhm.
Animals and other things, they only work on their needs only, not wants. But human beings have lot more beyond what is absolutely needed. We want luxury, we want recognition, we want fairness. So we have a lot of wants. The wants are the things that are causing us all kinds of difficulties or troubles, even the wars or anything. Needs are basic needs. That's what animals like minimize their like basic needs for survival. But human beings are think we are so smarter than animals, but we struggle a lot with the things that we don't really need, but we want. Good to have, nice to have kind of things.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so true, right? That's what gets us hung up. We have these wants and desires, and then we get thinking, what's wrong with us? The world isn't fair. We don't have these things we want. That's all the personal thinking.
Yeah.
That's when it's time to go back to the nothing, the impersonal, the Big Bang.
My ego is not my friend.
No.
He's not my friend. I'm stuck with him, and he's not my friend.
But we cut out tonsils, Ellen. We should be able to cut out an ego, except it's not, mass. You can't cut out something that's invisible. But right? We don't need tonsils anymore. We can just cut them away. And
Yeah, I think that's the one of the wonderful things about the three principles is it gives us a little bit of a clue about what is before all that personal thinking. You know, what is before that? Yeah. And
so glad you said that. Yeah.
Sometimes we see glimpses of what that is. You know, glimpses of the bouillabaisse instead of the potato that's in there. You know, I'm on a food thing, apparently.
You've got great metaphors today.
And that's the direction that you were talking about, Pallavi, that Sid's talks and books just have such a great way of pointing us in the direction of wisdom, of the impersonal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that, like, especially also now with the crazy times we're having with Corona and everything, like, I just don't get far with my kind of mind. Like I have this kind of mind that normally just when I'm interested in something or I want to know something, I just go into the details until I know everything and get bored and then I'm good, you know. But it's just there are situations in life where that's really not possible. And we have one of them right now, you know. But I already had this with my pain too. Like I could go into the details as much as I wanted to. It just didn't help. Nothing new came out. So I feel like I'm really on a journey of learning to see that ever more clearly, that there's no end in going in the details and trying to find out everything and trying to be right. And oh my God, and it's so painful sometimes, like, or just so to watch myself doing it and to just see, okay, I need to do it and watch it, and I'm, you know, I'm learning, I'm seeing it a little bit quicker, and I know the direction where I can get out of it, so that's cool. Like I know there's something else now, but the pull or the habit is strong, and the some ego thing, like wanting to be right or to understand or something like that, you know, like there's a strong pull sometimes to go in there and try to do it the intellectual way.
Well, look who's joining us. Whoa.
Who's Kumar?
And I'm tempted to say an old friend, but I mean, you know, like somebody who's been a friend for a while. We have to be careful of the words we use, right? Hey,
Well,
Richard, in Salt
the reason I'm dropping
Springs.
in, how you doing?
Hi,
It's
Richard.
reason I'm
Pallavi's
dropping in, there was a
birthday.
bit-
Are
Hi,
you here
Alan.
because it's Pallavi's birthday today?
Well, there's that, but I wanted to say that we all know, we have to start admitting that we do know, and that was all part of the story.
Well, say more. Have you been listening in?
No, it was just the chat that was on the comments on the post about today's session. So I, you know, because everybody says, well, we don't know about nothing, Alan. And
Oh, I
Sid
see.
said, no, well, Sid said you have to honor that we do know. To admit that we don't know is to not honor the truth. And at some
that's
point, we
good.
have to be truthful to our inner self and say, yes, I do know.
Cool. Very cool.
To know what? To know what? Say more.
It doesn't matter what.
Everything.
It's just the fact that you know. It's like what Sid talked about thought, is that it's not what we think, it's the fact that we think.
The
It's not
fact
the thoughts we
that
have.
we think, knowing that there's a distinction between
Yeah.
the ability to think, the power to think, and then there's what we think, the content of that.
Well, I think
Power
the
behind
conversation
that.
here about knowing is that if you're in intellectual or ego mind, then yes, it is a trip to say you know when you don't. And there's actually a recording that Sid talks about where a woman says to Sid, well, do you think you could just say, I think so?
I just heard
And he
that last
says-
night. I just listened to that last night. Go ahead. So
Yeah.
funny.
But that's the point, is that like once you know, and you have to honor that. Otherwise you know, you're not being truthful to what the essence of who we are.
Yeah, it's like Sid said, well, yeah, I could say my name is, I don't know what name he
Yeah,
is.
right.
I could
Joe
say my
Smith
name is
or
Tom,
whatever, yeah.
but that wouldn't be the truth. I could say I don't know, but that wouldn't be the truth.
Well, you know what was cool is that on the coattails of that, she says, see, you said, I think so.
Yeah,
And then he says, well, and then she says, asks him another question. And then he replies, well, I know because I know you don't know. So again, it was just another lesson about, you know, being mindful about where is the knowing coming from.
Right. That's the point. It doesn't come from brainwaves. It doesn't come from study. Doesn't come from memorizing things. It just comes from this unknown.
Nothingness.
The nothingness where wisdom
Intuition,
lies.
innate knowledge,
Intuition.
innate wisdom. I mean, Linda Pettit talks about intuition as wisdom. You know, again, they're just metaphors.
Right. Yeah. Silva and Linda, I don't know if you both know that Richard is creating this amazing digital, we'll describe it, Richard. You know, you
Storytelling
describe it.
space. It's a storytelling space.
Storytelling space.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And
A
Alan, I
digital-
do owe you an apology because I dropped off the radar. My conscious level just boom bombed for months. But I'm back in a week, 10 days to Ladner, and then I'm going to reach out to everybody because like major evolution happened as a result of engaging more souls in development.
Hmm.
It's always had a time. It's always had its own timeline. I mean, what I shared with everybody in December, January, February of 2020 was online in December 2016. I had the insight in October, but it took until December to get it to that point. And I left it alone. It's like anything, like writing, like you wrote The Secret of Love, Lori. It didn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
No, over the course of 10 years, Alan.
Yeah.
Richard, 10
Yeah.
years.
No, I mean, truth has got its own timeline in a sense. And when it's meant to happen, it happens. And when that's another metaphor called destiny. I mean, like that could be the next second or it could be never.
And that ties in with faith, what we were talking about earlier, right? Is having faith in this wisdom operating through us. If we get out of the way of it, we got to get out the impersonal out of the way of the wisdom coming through. I mean, the personal, we got to get the personal out of the way so that wisdom can flow. That's how I see it. How do you guys see it?
My experience of writing Perfect Misfortune is that good feeling, good space, idea comes out of that, becomes a written word, and then you have to step back from it and let it evolve to the next thing. And then you have another idea, comes out of a good feeling, and it becomes a word. And that process, really, somebody said that painting, you have to abandon the painting at some point. You never finish it. It just keeps evolving, and that the good feeling, the idea, the truth turns into a concept, turns into a word, and then needs to evolve some more. And I think that's one reason why I like the 5th edition instead of the 1st, because it's a little further evolved.
Never stops, Alan.
Never stops. Oh my God! You mean there's a 6th edition and a 7th?
Well, you know, I love the fact that Sid talked about infinity and the infinite nature of what the universe is and the universality of the individual, you, me, Pallavi, Lori, as part of the collective universal essence that's here. And I can remember before meeting Sid, I was probably 17, hitching a ride to Maple Bay where I spent my days with my guitar. That's where I met Marika. This was before I met Marika. And just having a thought that I'm a speck on planet Earth, which is a speck in the solar system, which is a speck in this galaxy, which is a speck in this universe, which is a speck in another universe. And it just kept going. And I didn't limit it. And I went, oh, cool. And stuck my thumb out and got a ride. So like when you talk about that, like, in that statement, the nth degree.
The statement,
Life is
what?
like-
Say that again?
Well, when people talk about the nth degree.
The nth.
Yeah, infinity.
Yeah.
I mean, Zed and beyond is that how I describe infinity, thanks to Sid giving me an appreciation for what infinity is. And I mean, that's my icon in my business branding is the infinity symbol. And people go, you're crazy. But like when you know, and you just have to stay focused on there's the infinitesimally small moment that you're in. Like that fragment of time, and we all know what time is.
Now, Richard, what would you say allows you to not be offended by the people who say, Richard, you're crazy?
Well, it gives me an opportunity to share my story.
That's how you see it.
Yeah.
You see it as an opportunity. How about the rest of you all? Like, you know, I'm sure that you come up against people doubting what you have to say, or they, you know, belittle what you have to say, or what have you. So what is it inside of you that goes on? Maybe if you could talk about it like now, as opposed to when you didn't know anything about Sid Banks and the three principles, or anything about the spiritual nature of life.
To me, it's actually a big difference, because I think before I always tried to look at it spiritually, in the sense of having compassion or not taking it personally, or whatever spiritual or therapy concept I just was learning or had in mind. And I think for me, really, this very simple statement of everybody is doing the best they can, giving the thinking that looks true to them. Like this second part was so important for me, or so helpful to really understand how it basically works. And the moment I remember that we all just have the thinking available that we have in the moment, basically, it's easier for me to just respect that. I also like when Sid talks about how we are all God in our own world, because we live in our separate reality, and I have to. It's important to respect that everybody is God in their world, and it's not my job to pull them in my world or change their world or whatever. Like, I can share if I'm asked to, and But yeah, I think these things are helping me with that a lot, since I learned from Sid.
What if
Perfectly.
your world and somebody else's world collide, or other person's world is demanding something which you don't consider that as a good thing in your world? So
We have to
how-
appreciate the duality of existence. You know, there's a cosmic illusion that exists, and the fact that we see one another separately is just an illusion that we're all from the same source, same essence. Again, they're just words. I mean, how do you describe the indescribable? Pick a word. Love, kindness, forgiveness. They're just words. But the feeling behind the word is the truth of existence.
Yeah.
So when the worlds collide, it's just to be able to see with clarity from the heart what each world is, and that we are only seeing them separate because of the thoughts we have about it. And
Yeah. Yeah, and that line that about everybody doing the best they can, given the thinking that's looking true for them in that moment. Like the next day, they could wake up and realize, well, that was stupid. I don't see it that way anymore. But yeah, it makes all the difference in the world when I'm aware of the fact that, you know, they seem to be from another planet, but that's only because of their individual thought bubble that they're in, how they're seeing the world through their eyeballs, through their thinking
through their conscious level.
that they're conscious of. Exactly.
Richard, I have a question. So
Yeah.
what do you think is the fundamental difference between a mosquito that's aware and a human being that's aware? What is there a fundamental difference, or are they one? Are they an expression of one, or is that just a conceptual word salad question? I mean, just curious.
Oh, I love the
I would say
question
they're
though.
I would say they're one, Alan, and you know that Sid would often talk about, well, this glass, like inanimate, like they're all like everything, absolutely everything with no limit is from the same source. So, I mean, there's the differentiation that Sid would talk about is about free will. And even animals have free will. I mean, when you talk about instinct versus free will, like instinct is kind of an involuntary built-in response. Well, free will is a built-in response. It's just, we tend to think about it, maybe. And I say maybe, that's a key word. Because, what causes us to separate from that state of thoughtlessness where we're not having any thoughts that divorce us from that moment of experience? It's thought. Consciousness is just that principle that connects us with being aware of what is going on in the moment. Well, it was interesting when you and I were sharing about ESSA, and this is really what ESSA is all about, is it's a sharing space that's coming. But what was neat was that the evolution that happened working with you and like 30 other people is that there was an evolution going on that was way beyond what my mind was saying. This is what I'd like ESSA to be. It was just happening. And you talked about it was so cool, not knowing where you were going, but the journey was what you were seeing and experiencing. I mean, that's the way ESSA's been from day one. I mean, like I didn't look for it, and it just popped into my mind an hour on I-5 heading north to La Conner to drop in and see Dickon on the way home. It wasn't a reality an hour earlier. And I asked him to write it because I thought, well, he's at a conscious level. He's a psychologist. This would speak to what Sid's experience was, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that psychology is that discipline or concept in existence that best describes our psychological experience and how to relate it to our day-to-day experiences in the earthly realm of world of form. So I just super enjoy going into those areas where there's no prior experience. And this is coming back to intuition, and why Linda loves it, because intuition is no prior knowledge or experience. So how can you say what's coming in your life? And when you're intuitive, you just open up to that innate capacity that we all have. And it's like we're all intuitive. It's like it's all relative to the conscious level that we have. Like the higher the level, the more intuitive we are. To embrace it with no fear that whatever's going to come is what you need to know in the moment. And that's kind of coming back to infinity, Lori. Like when people would question why, well, what I need to know when I need to know will be there. And that's, again, just tapping into the source of what is the essence of that drives everything. So.
Writing grants is such an intuitive, creative experience for me.
Yeah.
Writing a grant and pulling together the team and creating a program and even doing a budget. I mean, it's when it clicks, when it's a true expression of creativity in the moment, it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic.
You talked about writing and any creative process, doesn't matter what the process is, any creative process, the act of creating something out of nothing, for example. And, and that's you, Pallavi, you wanted to talk about nothingness today. And what is that state that gives birth to reality, regardless of what form it may take? A writing, a song, an art, where does it come from? Where does it spring from?
It comes from reality. Reality is reality. It didn't come from anything. It's always there in one form or other.
That's the beauty of life.
Yep. The only thing that's a constant is change.
It's like creativity, writing books, and really our lives also have a life of its own.
Yep.
Next chapter.
Yeah, yeah, that last, that life of its own that comes from the great nothingness
Yeah. And
by
that's so,
way of mind.
How can you do ESSA, Richard, without locking it in so that it has a difficult time evolving in the future? Do you know how you're going to do that?
Just rely on the conscious level, taking care of what needs to be taken care of, Alan.
Yeah.
And again, being in the moment. I mean, that is fundamentally how ESSA evolved, period. And like, it was being in the moment with 32 plus people in the last 3 months that gave birth to what it truly is, and that's a storytelling space. And that
Yeah.
space is
Okay.
something that's physical, it's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional, it's whatever adjective you want to use to define what space means. We can't predict where that might wander. But if we know that the wandering is from the source of a higher conscious, a high conscious level, you're going to go places that you could have never imagined existed.
that's exactly, I think, what I meant with talking or with this, like what Richard just said, like relying more on this the moment taking care of itself, the conscious level taking care of what's happening. This is what means to me, like being more aware of everything coming out of nothingness, and not me needing to plan every detail, but to let the moment take care of itself, and to let it show up whatever feels right and whatever wants to happen. And like, I think with gaining a little more trust in this, it seems like more of an option, and like an exciting one, like one that's more interesting than going on in maybe the old or habitual way of trying to figure everything out. And
Yeah.
that sounds beautiful how you're describing it, Richard, the process that's happening
Thanks,
there.
Bobby. Well, we just don't know, and like to even think about it is putting a box around it. And
Yeah.
like Sid talked about, it's not the thoughts you're having. So like, if you want to put a limitation on nothingness, it's the thoughts you have about it. But the power, the divine power of thought as the principle, is the mechanism that allows us to experience, and through consciousness, our awareness of the thought brings understanding as well. So, I mean, and it's all powered by mind. I mean, like how they all fit together as the Trinity is, it's amazing, because each one has a role to play, but they're not separable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
But, listening to all of you, I'm getting such a feeling of trusting, relying on this deeper place that, I've used the metaphor of the river of life. The river of life brings us along, whether it takes 10 years to write a book, or it takes, 5 hours to have the right find the right word. You know what I mean? It like we can relax. That's what I'm looking for. We can relax so much more all the time. The more we trust in mind, leading us to the next place, to the next unknown place. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Pallavi.
Oh no, it's fine. It's just I'm translating Dear Liza right now, and I'm almost finished with it, and it feels kind of weird because I don't know, I don't know how it even happened that I'm translating it. I'm a bit scared, or it feels a bit weird to translate its words, because there's so much depth and meaning to them, and I just don't feel like, like in a way, I don't know if I have enough understanding for it. But Dear Liza is like my favorite book, and I love the simplicity and beauty of it, and it's almost weird how easy it goes. Like, I thought I would think about every single word I'm translating when I'm translating Sid's books, you know, in opposed to other books which are a bit more easy. But in a way, it's going very easy right now. It feels very sweet and natural and easy, and I hope the outcome will be good and I will have other people looking over it, and you know, but still it's very interesting for me that when I just go with the feeling. And I think, dear Liza, when I read a little bit of it, it always brings me into this feeling. So I guess maybe from there it's easier to translate then, but it's just an interesting experience. Because it feels kind of creative, even though, of course, you're not, you know, it's not like writing your a book for yourself, but it's a very interesting process.
You must find, Falavi, though, that like when you translate languages, there may be expressions that don't translate. Like I know color in graphic design. I mean, there's certain colors and certain color models, just they're not available.
Yeah.
They don't exist. It's an impossibility. So it might be a phrase in English or a phrase in German or whatever that says exactly what it is, but you can't translate.
Yeah.
So.
I know I came across this a bit more often with the other books I translated from Hannah and from Krista. It didn't occur until now with the Eliza, like only in little stuff, but that was more like really not so important stuff. But yeah, we'll see. I'm working on the letters from Eliza's mom now, so.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm thinking I'm used to giving my understanding of what other people are saying, like in paraphrasing or writing, you know, giving my understanding into that's different than the understanding of the author.
Yeah.
And tricky.
Yeah.
Tricky. Interesting. Now, what a spiritual experience for you, Falavi.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I feel we don't have a single Sid book in German, you know, and there are lots of people who can't read English. So I feel like it's a great project to get the books out here, and I love being part of it and to just make it more available. But yeah, it's interesting.
Elsie's often talked about times that she's been in a language situation where the people that are listening to what she's sharing don't understand English, but they understand the feeling. And, you know, you just look at the radiance of the people that are looking back at you because they understand and they're absorbing what they're embracing that feeling that's being given away. So.
Yeah, I didn't understand what Sid was saying.
How many people did in terms of words?
I gotta tell you, but there was a part of me that knew with absolute fact that it was true.
Yeah,
it was true, and it came from a space that was true.
And you've probably experienced it, Alan, with your book, is that like when we first encountered the principles in the form it was, and this was The Island of Knowledge, was the book about Sid's experience, and it was a factual book, but it was a story that had truth threaded through it on various pages and whatnot. And there were, you know, quotes from Sid that, like his writings now, that, you know, the truth is leaping off the page into your heart and transforming you. And like when we read the book, Marika and I had about a week after we read it together, that there was just a sense of euphoria that where did it come from? We didn't know at the time. But when you look at The Missing Link, The Enlightened Gardener, Dear Liza, and a myriad of other books that have that capacity to change one's state of feeling in the moment, you know, where does that come from? How does that magic happen that you can actually lift that off the printed word? So.
Living soul talking to a living soul. That was.
So when you asked about ESSA, I can't predict what it's going to become, only that I have had some insights, but around the insights that I've seen of what its potential is, it doesn't exist yet today. So its time is coming at some point when it's ready, and there will be people and technology. And I mean, again, like a good friend of mine, my best friend and best man, he said, well, what do you know about graphic novels? And I said, very little. And he said, well, it's currently the rage in terms of publishing. From point of view of the story becomes a visual presentation as opposed to, typeset word on a page. And that's deep down, I know what ESSA will become, is that it is that space that will allow souls to connect, regardless of form, regardless of location, regardless of conscious level, because it will connect them at whatever level they're at. I didn't know I was searching. That was one of the things I realized. As soon as I woke up to that awareness, I stopped searching.
You realize that you found what you were searching for.
I didn't even know I was searching. It was just like thought and thinking. I didn't know I was actively searching. I was unconscious of that experience. I was just completely unaware. So that was one of the first things that happened to me, Alan, was just my level of consciousness was sort of burst open in that moment to make me go, I'm searching.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. And I didn't make a conscious decision to stop it. I just stopped. And then we met Sid shortly after that, and the journey was on, and it remains on. And Sid said, once you know, you know. You can't hide it. You can't conceal it, because that would be to deny it.
And you can't turn back to not knowing.
For me, it was like the movie went from black and white to color. The color, Yeah. It's like OMG.
Yeah.
OMG, yeah. And Richard, your description of the evolution of ESSA is such a perfect example of trusting in not knowing.
Yeah.
We can rely on it.
And even the thoughts I've had in the last evolutionary stages, they could be a limitation of what it's possibly going to become. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I just have an inkling, Alan, because of experience that I've had it. But I've also had the experiences of consciousness bursting that bring forth insights that realities that you've never, ever encountered before come forward.
Consciousness bursting. That's great. That's a great.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, brings it back full circle to nothingness, oneness, isness, allness. They're all words. They all mean the same thing. Just grateful, that it happened in my lifetime, my physical lifetime, that I was fortunate enough to wake up to become aware. Could have walked around asleep for the rest of my physical life. Not knowing.
Not knowing what you didn't know.
Well, not knowing that I knew, but just being completely unaware.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the key back to, the not knowing, is that knowing that there's no end to it. There's an infinite depth and infinite breadth, that you're never ever going to come to the edge of awareness. That talks about the infinite nature of the principles.
That's right.
Isn't it weird that with these, I don't know, with this deep truth, you can kind of always put it both ways? Because I was just thinking, like, one of my favorite sayings of Osho, when we talked about him earlier, was not knowing is the most intimate. And of course, there he's talking about the knowing from the mind, right? Like from the personal mind. So not knowing would be the quiet state. And on the other hand, I loved what Richard said, that it's important to realize or to kind of say or see that you really do know. So I always love this thing that kind of both is true. It depends on from where you're looking at, or you know what I mean? Like it depends on how you're using it, the words.
Let me give you two words, Pallavi. Nothingness, allness. They are the same thing. And that's like, you know, regardless of what metaphors you might use to describe your experience of being now, like living now. I mean, that's an amazing, like in the moment, living now. It's like being in a state of thought where you're not caught in the flow of thoughts, you just thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Sid talked about. It's the fact that you are thought. You are that divine principle called thought. And that through consciousness, we are aware of the thoughts. All powered by mind. It all comes from that one place.
Oh, that's cool. I just heard something new in the way you expressed it. Like I love it when Sid says this, like all of life is one divine thought and we are it. But there was something right now when you said it that I heard in a new way. Thank you.
Well, we have the pleasure of an enlightened being's awakening to awaken everybody else on the planet, you know, in the universe. I mean, we just don't know what the limit is. And that's a good thing. So that kind of comes back to not knowing, is that by saying, you know, by thinking we know, that simply limits the potential. That's what I liked when Alan said when I was talking with him about ESSA, and you're taking peace, right, Alan?
Uh-huh.
And I moved that ahead. You just haven't seen it yet. And when I go back, I need to do everybody the service and favor of updating ESSA to the point that I can pull a PDF so that the evolution that took place in 3.5 months is present. And, you know, I did pull the picture that you liked, and I've got, you know, your text in, but there's like 25 other pages to go. And some are complete. And but even then, when you say complete, there's always going to be opportunity to open the door again on whatever. And that's what I envision for ESSA. It will become a living, breathing, constant, changeable expression, space that whomever engages that space at that moment that their awareness brings it to them, they will contribute and elevate it to that level, to the next level.
I love the idea of doing that in a way that individual, that souls can respond, that souls will respond. ESSA, I mean, that feels so, I mean, that's so much like what happened, you know, my soul responded and continues to respond at different levels, but that was, what a wonderful gift. What a wonderful gift that will be.
The cool thing is you could have never thought it if you'd said, I got to think about it.
Yeah.
Guys, I gotta get going. I'm so sorry. I want to keep going with all of you, but I have a client who is trying to get in and doesn't realize that this is our group and she can come in now.
Okay.
But I just want to say one thing was said a few minutes ago about the most intimate thing is not knowing. I don't remember the exact words you used, Pallavi, but from Osha.
Not knowing is the most intimate.
Is what?
Not knowing is the most intimate.
Not knowing is the most intimate, because that's really the work that I do with couples. If they can listen to each other without thinking they know what their partner is trying to get across, they won't react. they'll sit back and listen better. And that is the most intimate place to be in a place of not knowing. Isn't that interesting that that translates into helping people relate to one another? It doesn't have to be just couples, just any connection. So,
Yeah.
I gotta
So
go.
basically,
No.
not knowing is not knowing about
Say that again,
others.
Sabha.
So the thing is, you cannot not know about yourself because you know something. So not knowing or not assuming about others is the, I think, a highlight of that maybe.
Yeah, to be able to listen with a really quiet mind.
Yep.
And, you know, a thought will come in, oh, I know what they're talking about. I know what that is all about. And then be willing to let that thought go and not hang your hat on that thought and not trust that thought, but trusting in the not knowing. And then it like that kaleidoscope comes into view.
One phrase that Sid used was really cool, is the state of no thought,
Yeah.
which could translate to not knowing, but it is in the state of no thought that you know, because everything, absolutely everything to the infinite degree is known. We just don't know what the limit of infinity is. That's all.
Is there something called infinity? That's just a concept, not real thing.
Infinity is what it
No.
is.
Infinity is just a concept. It's not real thing. There's nothing called infinity.
Concept, words, whatever, are all one thing. They just are.
But there
what
are
they
some concepts talk
I
about
know.
imaginary things, like
Yeah, I
infinity
know.
is an imaginary thing. It's not real.
Well, define what's real.
Yeah, whatever is real, not like whatever is not imaginary.
You live in a cosmic illusion. That's real.
Again, it depends on what is illusion.
It's just a word, Zuba,
Yep, that's what.
which is cool. I mean, that's what allows the fluidity of existence to reach new dimensions, to plumb new depths, to go the distance of infinity. You know, no boundary. Like infinity, like there's a symbol that describes infinity in a way, like the infinity symbol is very cool because it's the Mobius loop, that it's a continuous path. But even then, if you look at the graphical representation of infinity, it's finite.
Yeah, see, again, infinite is the thing that people think unlimited things. There's nothing that is unlimited.
Well, no beginning, no end, no in between, no. Like a circle is, in my mind, embraces a concept close to infinity, but it's closed, it's finite. But that's where Sid would often talk about form and formless are the same. Infinity and finite are the same.
That's confusing.
Non-duality, the non-duality of life.
Yeah.
That would take another several hours. And I have to sign off because I got to sign the next person into the space. But what a wonderful, thank you so much. You know, and thank you for coming on, Richard, to help celebrate Pallavi. But also, like, I didn't have time today to look at the messages that were left on the Facebook group. So I rely on all of you guys to clue me in. I'm usually pretty on top of that, but whoops.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
Lois is
you.
back.
Yeah, I think she has a session on the same Zoom
Okay.
meeting with a client. So sorry. Thank you
Well,
all.
she may have
Meet
another,
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
she may have
Okay.
the other ability to invite to a different room. I know we're using her personal meeting room, which is what I usually do for Zoom. So
Okay. Next
I
time.
see the
Thank you.
recording button's back on. So
Yeah.
Oh, I have to I got grants, Pen and grants.
It was so nice to see you guys.
Happy
Nice to
birthday,
see you all.
Fatalavi.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
fun to see
Richard.
you guys. Happy
Thank you.
birthday to you.
Later.
Bye, everybody. My thing stopped. So
Okay.
bye. Happy birthday, Pallavi.
Bye. Thank
Have
you.
a great rest
Happy
of the
birthday
day.
again. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you all.
bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.